Good evening. Welcome to August meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust. We're not on our usual night, but we've got a lot of important business, and we are expecting a few more of our members who are not yet with us. So maybe we'll give them just a second, and we also want to introduce some of our new members. But let me ask if Maura, do you have anything you wish to raise before we get into our agenda?
Nope.
Okay.
I think
Um,
Linda's going to join though, Linda Slakey, but that's for the agenda.
yes, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, we Carl. Okay, so everyone is here. Wonderful. So I think the first order of business, we should take a minute to meet our new members. And so I will give each of them a chance to introduce themselves and maybe just say a sentence about why you joined the trust. And then we can have the rest of us introduce ourselves to them. Greg and I have already had another meeting with them, but Bob and Paul, you have met them, of course, but Carla, Hijay, and Bob. So, Ethan, why don't you start us off?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ethan Zhou. I'm a junior at Amherst College, majoring in American Studies and Spanish. I'm a caseworker as well at Amherst Community Connections, which helps housing insecure residents here in Pioneer Valley accessing to affordable housing. So I feel like it is a really good chance to be on this trust to do some policy changes and to advocate my experience to advocate for the people that I help with at Amherst Community Connections. One specific populations I'm really interested in helping is people who are involved in the criminal justice system. Some of them have a lot of barrier in terms of accessing to public housing, and I hope there are some changes of policies to serve those kind of people. It's a great honor to serve on this trust, and I'm looking forward to working with each of you guys.
Thank you so much, Ethan. We're very pleased to have you with us. Our second new member, Mayan, please, why don't you introduce yourself briefly?
Hi, my name is Megan Folks. I'm on the bus right now in San Francisco, but I'm a sophomore at Amherst College, double majoring in economics and French, and I joined the trust just because I had had really positive experiences being on another town committee. I'm on the CDBG committee, and I just kind of wanted to learn more about housing policy specifically because something that I have been learning a little bit more about in some of my LJST and political science classes at Amherst has just been kind of like Ethan was saying, like the criminal justice system, but also just about low income communities. So I kind of wanted to better understand how to work in local government housing policies specifically. So yeah,
Okay,
I'm super grateful for
great.
the opportunity.
Thank you, Mayan. In no order, Hijay, could you just share a sentence about yourself so they have a sense of where you're coming from? We'll look forward to having an in-person event to connect further, but this is our first meeting as a new membership.
Sure, I can go next. Hi, Ethan and Mayan. Nice to meet you both, and hello again to everyone else. So I hope you guys are all having a good summer so far. My name is CJ. I joined the trust not that long ago, about a year ago, I guess, like less than. I forget exactly how long, but it's been a great experience getting to not only know the people on this in this committee, past members and current members, but also to get to be a little bit more intimate with the community itself. I'm also a recent transplant into the Amherst community, so my desire was to really understand the community at large, especially on a topic that I am very passionate about, and which is making sure that housing is available to everyone, especially at the affordable level. So nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Hijay. Carla?
Hi there, I'm Carla. I've been on the trust for about a year as well. And I've lived in Amherst for about 15 years. I became more interested in housing as an issue through my work as a psychiatric nurse practitioner. A lot of my patients at the hospital experience housing instability. I work in Greenfield, so that's kind of what piqued my interest and led me to end up joining the trust. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Carla. Bob?
Hi, welcome, Ethan and Ryan. Good to have you aboard. I've also been on the trust for a little over a year and am a returnee to the Amherst area from longer ago than I would like to remember, but I've been back for about little over 2 years. Housing is obviously a huge issue here, something I just have an interest in. I've been banging nails with Habitat for Humanity for a while, and continue to do that. And working on the housing trust really has been an education, and hopefully we're making a difference as well. So welcome.
Thank you. And Paul, maybe you can just reintroduce yourself.
Sure. Paul Bockelman, town manager, coming up on 10 years being town manager of Amherst. I went to Hampshire College, moved away, and then came back for this job. So went to a graduate school for planning, and with housing as a piece of that. So that's my background.
Thank you. And you've had a chance to hear from me, but I'll just, for the sake of the fullness of this recording, I moved to Amherst in 2018, got quickly involved with the License Commission, and was pleased to be able to join the trust and do my best to contribute to affordable housing in Amherst. And so, Greg, please. You want to just
yeah, and as a reminder, I'm Greg. I'm staff to the committee and work within the town's planning department, and working on matters related to the trust and other initiatives, all related in some way to affordable housing.
Okay, great. It's wonderful to have us convened. So I think we don't have any minutes to review. Is that right, Greg?
That's correct. Unfortunately, I did not get to that, so we'll do them next month.
No worries. Okay. We have two important items that we'll call for votes. So we should go ahead and get started. And first up, we've got Wayfinders, which is making an interesting proposal whereby actually having more affordable units means that there's a change to come back to us. So floor is yours. Who should we promote?
So I'm going to promote Jamie Gruber in just 1 minute, who's the project manager on this with Wayfinders. And if I could just frame it slightly, and Jamie will go into a bit more detail. So Jamie, I'll promote you now, and then we can go from there. But so this is a project that the trust has deep roots with. It's one of the very first initiatives the trust was involved with. However, less in the direct sense as a funder and more as a sponsor of an RFP process, or request for proposals process, which Wayfinders was the eventual winner of. And so this is, as a reminder, Jamie will share the details, but this is a two-site project centered on both the former East Street Elementary School, which is on East Street, and then a nearby site over on Belchertown Road. And we'll see some details on that. And I think and so I guess I'll just say there's been some recent activity on this effort. This has been something that the town and the trust have been engaged with for a while. The town has completed its local permitting of this project. So design, all that work is done. And so now, and our new members will learn about this over time, but the next big step is to receive state funding, which we've been working on. And really Wayfinders has been leading more recently. And they're up for the next application for state funds. So that's kind of the timeliness of this. And I'll just note that we've been supporting their efforts to make some very modest architectural adjustments having to do with sort of reconciling historic preservation and accessibility and making sure everything talks to each other correctly. And then other folks may have seen more recently, in the past about a week ago today, I believe, my boss Jeff Bagg hosted the Secretary of Housing and Livable Communities from the state a little visit here to Amherst, and they stopped by the East Street School site to sort of brief her on the project. So exciting things happening, and we appreciate Jamie and Wayfinders assisting in all of that and leading most of it. With that, I will hand it over to Jamie, and please feel free, Jamie, if I missed any critical opening details, stick them in.
Yeah, that's great, Greg, and thank you very much. I'll introduce myself. I'm Jamie Gruber. I'm a project manager with Wayfinders. I've been working on the Amherst development for about 4 years now to kind of get this development moving along and everything, and we're in a really good spot. And our next place is funding. And Greg, I think you hit most of the notes. So I guess maybe I'll give you a kind of a brief overview and history of the development and how it came to life. With the town of Amherst, it's been a long-standing town initiative. Go through that process a little bit and talk to you about what we're proposing, and also go over what we're hoping that we'll have the trust support us in, which would be just a kind of a letter in support to the Zoning Board of Appeals that would just state that it's a minor change in nature, and it's actually going to make more affordable units, and it's actually due to some of the regulatory and things like that, where we're trying to keep this development that it recently came to light, to keep it as one phase as it's always been kind of envisioned for the town. And with that, I'll share my screen, and I will give you the overview here. Let's see. All right. And could you all see my screen? Okay, great. So, so this is 2 sites, as Greg had mentioned, the East Street School and Belchertown Road. At 31 South East Street, we are planning to do a complete renovation, adaptive reuse of the school building, while adding an addition onto the front of the school connected by a link. We'll be creating 31 units, studio, 1s, 2s, and 3 bedrooms. And it's going to be fully visitable. It'll have elevator access to all floors. It'll be all electric and passive house. And at 70 Belchertown Road, which is just down the street, that's going to, there is a couple of surplus vacant single family homes on the site that'll be removed, and it'll be an all new construction 47 unit building that will be a mix of studio, 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. The same fully visitable, all electric, passive house. And these are the renderings of what the architectural renderings, the construction drawings are at that bid set level. So we're ready to go with that. And Wayfinders, if you're not familiar, we are an organization of a nonprofit based in Springfield that does our work primarily up and down the Pioneer Valley and 91 corridor. We work across the housing continuum from homelessness all the way to home ownership programs. We work in emergency shelter, transition housing, rental assistance, financial assistance, workforce development. And we also have a property and asset management team that manages roughly 800 apartment rental units up and down the Pioneer Valley, and our real estate development department, which is what the department that I'm in. So we do new construction, occupied rehabs, adaptive reuse, supportive services. We have resident service coordinators that attend to a lot of our properties that help the residents. We work with the federal and state voucher programs, and just to work on the housing and financial counseling services to promote economic mobility and homelessness prevention and home ownership and credit workshops. Some of our local developments, a couple in Amherst, currently is Butternut Farms, which is 27 units in Amherst, Olympia Oaks, as well as in Northampton. We have Live 155 on Pleasant Street, along with the lumber yard in Northampton, and Northampton also has the Sargent House on Bridge Street, and in Holyoke we have Library Commons. These are some of our more recent developments that are close by, but we've just finished 62-unit development in Agawam a couple years ago, and just wrapped up one in Ludlow as well, 47 units, and we have 60 units being constructed right now in South Hadley, and we're finishing up the second phase of Library Commons here, just adjacent to these sites for to create another 40 or so units there. So our development team is led by Wayfinders as the project developer. We're working with attorney Schatz Sorch and Fenton out of Springfield. We have O'Reilly Talbot and Oaken. Joy Square Design is our architect, and we have Niche Engineering, CBA Landscape Architects, and Airtight Energy Consulting, along with NEI General Contractors for our construction manager and pre-construction services, and will be our contractor for construction. So just to give you a little bit of the background, this has been a long time town initiative to create more affordable housing. At 31 Southeast Street in 2019, the town conveyed that property for affordable housing purposes, and then 70 Belchertown Road, where the all new construction building will be, was actually acquired by the town for the purposes of affordable housing. And I think 135,000 in Amherst affordable housing trust funds were used, along with $600 in CPA. And then, once those were acquired, the town had issued a RFP to develop the sites. One of the things goals in the RFP was to create, the maximum number of affordable units, also to have, a mixed income development, which is what we've proposed. Wayfinders was selected as the preferred developer, and since then the town has even contributed more in terms of $1 million in town funds with CPA and ARPA. And the town-owned properties will be leased at a nominal fee. We're extremely grateful for all the local support that the town has had, the ongoing support of the Affordable Housing Trust through our CPA applications, and providing us support at different times. So, and Belchertown Road had undergone some renovations and infrastructure improvements as well. And at Southeast Street, they also did fixed an old culvert and did a nice ecological restoration there, which I was able to see when we were on site last week with the secretary. So, and then all through the process, we've been working with the town staff. The town had the town department meetings, met with the fire, engineering, building departments, public works, conservation and planning. We've done quite a few presentations for the Historic Commission, Planning Board, Conservation Commission, and the Zoning Board of Appeals, and we've held some multiple information sessions as well. So it's been going on for 4 years, and a lot of our we're still really working hard to kind of get this to the next step here. And some of our development goals was just the efficient use of land, barrier-free housing, sustainability with the passive house, enterprise green communities, and solar solar PV and that and as well as the operational goals. We not only develop the sites, we also manage them. So this will become part of Wayfinder's portfolio. So we have an on-site property management presence. All right, and then as Greg had mentioned, the site control that was complete. We were selected as the preferred developer. We have a land development agreement with the town of Amherst, and then that'll eventually turn into a future 99-year ground lease on the properties. Our due diligence is complete. Our permitting is complete. We got the comprehensive permit issued in February of 2025. And conservation permitting is also complete. Our design is complete to bid set documents, and our contractor selection is also complete. So we're ready for construction. The next stage is the funding, and that's what we've been working on. We've submitted pre-applications in 2025 and 2026. The state holds annual rounds. Sometimes they hold a second, more sort of concentrated round called a mini round that you may need to be invited into. So we're looking to advance this into the full round this year, and we had a really positive conversation. So we're really hopeful, and it was great that the secretary was able to come out last week and stop in Amherst, and we were able to kind of present the development to her. So that was great. So that's what we're in. The pre-applications are due next month, and then the full application is due at the beginning of December. And so the sites are located close to downtown walking distance and close to bus stops. We have 31 Southeast Street and East Amherst across from the new school, and on the opposite side of the town green there. And then Belchertown Road is just less than a quarter of a mile away, just down the road from that. So it's two separate sites. And that's actually one of the reasons why we're coming back and with the removal of the market rate units, in order to kind of see this development move through as one phase. We'd be looking to remove the market rate units that we had initially proposed, and there were 10 of them at Southeast Street, and we would just make those into a different mix of affordability levels. So it would become more affordable. So at 31 Southeast Street, we have 31 units. As part of the RFP, the requirement was for at least 66% of the units to be 2s and 3 bedrooms and family housing, which is consistent with some of the state funding sources as well. That's one of the areas that we would like to call this is family housing. So we're creating 15 2-bedroom units and 5 3-bedroom units. 2 of the units on this site will be accessible, and all of the units will be visitable with elevator access to all floors. The school building is set back a little bit from the road, but the new addition portion that's going to have 26 units will be along the road, and it'll frame a nice little courtyard for residents to use. There'll be on-site laundry, community room, and a property management office with indoor bike storage as well. The Belchertown Row site is 47 units. There are 12 1-bedrooms, 23 2-bedrooms, and 10 3-bedroom units, and 6 of the units will be accessible. The parking will be in the rear of the site, and it'll be along the Belchertown Road here. And there's a bus stop right across the street from this one as well. And then this is the site plan, and this site will also have a community room, on-site laundry, and it's going to be all electric, passive house, elevator access to all floors, and 6 accessible units. And then as far as the income levels go, we're talking about the area median income and how the affordable units will be restricted. So to give you an example on this chart, we're going to have a mix of 30 AMI to 80 AMI units. And so a single person household in the 50% AMI category could have a annual income of $46,000, and then they will qualify for one of those units. And then a family of four making up to $105,000 would qualify for an 80% AMI unit, which is sometimes referred to as workforce units. So these are the the salaries, or not the salaries, but the area mean income for different household sizes. And just take a minute here. So here's the affordability unit matrix at 31 and 70 Belchertown Road combined. It's 78 units. We're proposing roughly 30% of the units at the 30% AMI level, 15% at the 50% AMI level, 31% at the 60 AMI level, and then 24% at the 80% AMI level to come up with the 78 units. And then here are the totals. We have 3 studios, 22 one-bedrooms, 38 two-bedrooms, and 15 three-bedrooms. At 70 Belchertown Road, this has always been, since the RFP, this site will remain unchanged. The site carries an affordability restriction on it that all of the units need to be affordable there due to it being purchased for affordable housing purposes with the CPA and Affordable Housing Trust dollars. So we have a mix of 30s through 80s here. And then at 31 Southeast Street, we have 31 units. And we had initially had 10 market rate units, and those have been redistributed in between the 50% AMI and 60% AMI level. So now we have the 31 units, the 1 studio, 10 one-bedrooms, 15 two-bedrooms, and 5 3-bedroom units, and they'll be distributed as it's shown on the upper table here. So, and that's basically the change that we're asking for the trust's support. And here we go. So the development timeline moving forward is funding dependent. Right now we're requesting the letter of support for our EOHLC, or Executive Office of Housing and Livable Community Funding Round. Our pre-application is due in September, and our full application is due in December. And so we're requesting a letter of support for that full application, as well as a letter to the Zoning Board of Appeals for the minor comprehensive permit amendment. As Greg had said, this project or development has been permitted, and the unit matrix that shows up in the comprehensive permit would just need to be an amendment. We see this as a minor sort of inconsequential change. So, but we wanted to get the trust's support in that prior to going to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And then as we move forward, we'll be submitting our full application in December, and then hopefully in the spring hear something on that. And then from spring, summer, we'll be doing pre-closing investor solicitation and going into financial closing, which hopefully would start construction in 2028, possibly the winter, late winter of 27 if we are awarded in the first round. And then it would be an 18-month construction timeline to hopefully have these completed in the fall of 2029. So
Beautiful. So, Jamie, can you just again summarize the exact change that you want us to support for these two, for the EOHLC and the permit amendment?
yeah, so the permit amendment, we'd ask that you we would ask that you support the change from the 10 market rate units to the 5 50% AMI and 5 60% AMI units.
Okay.
For the general letter for our full funding application, we would just ask that you support the development overall. It's not anything specific, just that the Affordable Housing Trust has it's been so instrumental in helping us with the CPA and everything else and all the local support. And we are really appreciative of that, continued support that has gone on, and just sort of that overall support of the development, on behalf of the trust.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Thanks for giving us the background. Wayfinders is a longstanding partner, so it's great for everyone to remember the extent of your work. So let's open it up for questions. Who has any questions? This is a great chance, if you're just curious about any aspect of the project, to ask Jamie while we have him with us.
I have a question and a comment. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry, you can go, Carla.
Yeah,
I just want to
go ahead. Yeah.
Quick comment just to say, because I'm particularly excited about the new school. It's just such a great location, given the new school that's opening up in Amherst, that we've been waiting for a long time. I think it's just a great place to have this project. And I'm just trying to clarify, is this, what is the reason for the change? I'm sure you said it, but I just to kind of put it in context, is it making it easier to secure funding? Or, overall, I think this project is amazing. I'm just blown away. I'm so excited to see it go up in Amherst, and I'm going to give my full support. I'm just curious just to understand it in context.
Yes, it is twofold. It will make it less complicated, more easily to fund, but also there is sort of a regulatory item that has recently come to light, where with the inclusion of market rate units, and because the sites are physically separated from one another, that it would have to be phased as two separate sort of LIHTC which is the low income housing tax credit, which is where we get the lion's share of the funding. So it is sort of a regulatory issue where having it be all affordable but mixed income to the 80% AMI level would allow it to move forward as one phase, one LIHTC transaction, which makes it simpler and easier to fund. These deals are extremely complex, and when additional complexities get added into them, it just sort of slows them down a little bit. So that's the main reason to kind of move on as one phase, as we have always intended. And I know is that from what I've heard, with the town and everybody that's been involved, to just, the two sites will be constructed simultaneously, in one phase, and, same construction period. And that's what the plan is. And that's what we want it to remain as. So that being the reason.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for asking that question and clarifying for us, Jamie. Eason.
Yeah. Hi, Jamie. I work closely with Wayfinders. I really appreciate the work that you and your team does, including applying, helping people applying for raft and stuff like that. And we do have lots of participants who apply for Wayfinders housing. So the question I have is in terms of barrier for application. For what I can recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, previously we need to submit the paper copy to each property that we're applying. And now it seems like in the spring, you stopped doing that and want us to apply online. And for the online specific property, it's just the same application over and over again. And, because those properties are really competitive and our participants apply maybe 10 properties at the same time. So it's just like there's no streamline applications that we can send out to 10 properties. So the question I have is, what is that something that you see as a barrier of the application, how people apply, or is that something it changed over the summer?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. This development would have its own marketing so that the applicant would apply, for an apartment at this, and we usually start that process 6 months prior to when the construction is complete. And through that applicant process, there's then a lottery where folks are chosen and would be eligible to have the opportunity to move in to one of the units. So that might differ from helping somebody, I guess, apply to get on a waiting list for one of our existing properties. But that's it's something I'm happy to kind of follow up on with the staff that handles uh, the applications to determine if there is something else there that would help streamline that process.
Wonderful. And Eason, it's great to have your awareness of how these parts of the process work, because these are questions that I would not think of. And thank you, Jamie, for considering that inquiry. Bob, please.
Yeah, just wondering if the ask of the state changes at all with this change, or is it the same amount of funding that you're looking for from the state?
Um, yeah, we are going to be looking to um, you know get the same, fund the same amount of for the deal. Having more of the units affordable will just sort of offset versus sort of private borrowing versus raising additional equity with our tax credit investors. So it's sort of a kind of just a mix between those two.
Okay, he
For a
did.
shift. Mhm.
Thank you, Bob.
Hi, Jamie. Thanks for the presentation. It's really well delivered. I think generally the changes seem in line with what the trust is looking for. I guess I'm just a little bit more curious about the background about how funding works in this situation, and this is just coming from a very naive perspective. Market rate apartments now being transferred into affordable housing looks like it's giving more funding through tax credits. Is that more of a short-term gain, or is there some sort of long-term sort of drawback to doing it this way? Just out of curiosity. I don't understand the nuance between the short term and the long term by changing the affordability counts for the rooms.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the main thing is because they're two separate sites,
Right.
it would incur an extensive amount of upfront cost to split the deal up into two separate and delay things to have it go into possibly two funding rounds
I see.
and split it up in that regard. Now, and with that said, and I think to what Bob was sort of getting at is that yes, well, more units would qualify for basis, so it would allow us to raise more private investor for the state, not the state and federal low income housing tax credits, as opposed to possibly borrowing on a permanent loan. So I don't see it as sort of a short-sighted or long-sighted. It's just a shift in kind of how it all sort of shakes out. Is that
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that.
okay?
It's just I don't understand the side of the funding or anything really related to how affordable funding works with the government. credits, but thanks for answering that. And then maybe just a small follow-up, kind of along the lines of what Ethan was asking. So I get that there are two physical properties here. It's one development project. Is there one singular application for both of these properties?
Yes, yes, there will
Okay.
be.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good question. Thank you. Any further questions, Mayan or Paul? Any inquiries here? No. So I just want to structure our vote appropriately. So I take it we want these two letters of support. As you said, one of them would address the shift from the market rate units. The other one would look for general support. We would, we don't have those drafted. Certainly, we would request your feedback about the key points that should be included. Greg, what do you think? Can we just structure a vote of whether we want to support the project with these two letters, and that we'll go ahead and draft those in due course?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you all want to vote to take that action, I can draft letters to the ZBA and at the direction of Jamie, either EOHLC or perhaps directly to Wayfinders, depending on the best approach, for the later term letter. And then I would propose something that I could draft something, and happy to work it out with you as chair if folks want to empower us to do that. And I think the one sort of phrasing that might belong in a vote, Jamie, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is the idea that we want to sort of propose to the ZBA that the trust believes this is an inconsequential change?
Yeah, or insubstantial.
Insubstantial. Is that the kind of the zoning phrasing we want to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jamie, is there any downside for us doing this? It sounds just like a good thing.
Yeah, I don't see a downside to this. I think it makes it more affordable. It retains its mixed income approach with the 80% AMI level. And it also it's going to help sort of with our funding in the investors in the development who will partner with and work with. So I think it's really the best path forward for this.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate coming back to the town or the trust for additional funds because of this?
Not at this time, no. Not
Thank you.
because of this. Thank you.
Jamie, would you mind putting up that slide that detailed the two letters?
Yes.
And I'm curious, how did you discover the two project conundrum?
Just in working with our tax council and the structure of the low-income housing tax credit minimum set aside, so that we were able to get the 80% AMI units into the qualified basis. It's a slightly newer rule where it's just some of these kind of nuances that came along with it. The 80% AMI units were initially brought into the development as a workforce housing. There was a large workforce housing funding source through Mass Housing, where it helped with the construction of this, and with a lot of sort of the funding that has kind of fallen off the table. This allowed us to generate it through the leveraging the federal low-income housing tax credits. So kind of restructuring the deal so that we could leverage more federal funds is sort of, with the 80% AMI units is kind of how this all came to be. So
well, it's nice when the discovery means more affordable housing units. You find a receptive audience with us. So
yes.
Do we have a motion to support this project by producing the two letters that have been requested?
Motion.
A motion.
Okay, so I think Hijay, you spoke up first. So Hijay has a motion to support the project by producing the 2 letters of support that have been requested. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mayan beat you to the punch, Bob. So
Sorry,
thank
Bob.
you.
Bob, you gotta work on this.
I
Mayan,
know, I gotta
Mayan
practice my
seconds
buzzer
that.
work.
So we have a vote now. Bob, you go first.
Yes.
Okay, Carla,
Yes.
Eason,
Yes.
Hijay,
Yes.
Mayan,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So we have a unanimous vote of support for the project, and we'll get those letters produced. Jamie, if you wouldn't mind specifying any details besides what has already come up, that'll help us get it right on the first pass.
Okay, all right. That's perfect. I'll see if I can send something over to Greg and we can go from there. Does that sound like a plan?
Perfect.
Great.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thanks for all the support for sure. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Bye. All right. Well, so that's our first item of action this evening, and we have a follow-up with a very important partner of ours, the Amherst Community Land Trust. So let's get Linda, and is she joined by, is Kathleen with ACLT?
I don't believe so, but Linda, I'm promoting you, and please let me know if there's anybody else I should be adding to the mix here.
Hi, Linda.
Hi. Thank you for having me back.
Of
So,
course.
Greg and I had a little discussion of this afternoon, and in place of running PowerPoint slides, I was just going to walk people through the request and see if there are questions. But when we made that decision, I was not paying attention to the fact that there would be 2 new people tonight. So if you'll bear with me, I would like to just show the first 3 slides from the longer presentation that the previous members heard in November, just as a way of
Sure. No, it's good. It's good to be able to visualize the project.
and reorient
Linda. Yeah.
people who saw it once already. Okay, so let me go to share here. And the first thing we're going to share.
And Eason and Mayan, you know where the Amherst Cinema is, just down the hill about 100 yards or so is what we're talking about.
So some of you may have noticed, if you follow the Hampshire Gazette, this was actually a front page story a few weeks ago about this project. So the building that predominates in this picture is actually new. If you walk down Amity Street, if you start at the cinema and start downhill on Amity Street, this is in the 2nd block. And if you've been in Amherst for a long time or used to taking that walk, the older building you may recognize by a hallmark on the part of it that faces the street, which is a big carved wooden bird. That's the property that we're talking about. And then I'm going to, just bear with me for shuffling here, but I'm going to have to stop this there and start again in order to switch to the PowerPoint slides that discussing. Oh, come on, PowerPoint. I know I have you up. Oh, there it is. So this is just a quick review for everyone, and perhaps new for the new members. A community land trust model simply is that the trust raises money in order to purchase land. And we own the land in perpetuity, and then that takes a big chunk off the price. That's the mechanism for supporting affordable home ownership. The relationship between the trust and its homeowners is governed by a document called a ground lease, which is for 99 years, effectively in perpetuity. it has two really big requirements that the homeowners have to be comfortable with. One is that they have to live there. Now, of course, one imagines that's what people were looking to do when they buy a home, but it means very specifically that should their plans change and they relocate, they can't hold this property and run it as a rental. They have to put it back up for sale affordably, so that the whole development will be owner-occupied affordable homes in perpetuity. And then the homeowners also agree that the price that they paid is capped. It can rise with time, but it doesn't rise with market forces. It rises with the documented rise in area median income. So if they were at 70% AMI when they purchased, when they sell, they'll be at whatever, if they sell 15 years hence, whatever is 70% AMI then will govern what they can charge for a resale price. So those are just sort of the key elements that are the background to how this development will run. And then when I presented this project to the trust in November, this sketch was the site plan. This site plan still holds. There were previous versions, but the one that we had settled on by November took account of the fact that there's a small wetland in the southeast corner of the lot that had to be worked around. So this will have a park-like rear atmosphere in which there will be only native plantings. That's part of the agreement of allowing us to intrude on the 100-foot buffer of the wetland, but not the 50. So this line represents the 50-foot boundary. And the darker rose-colored hatching there, that's the ground, that's the footprint of the existing building. And it is large enough that it can be divided into 3 townhouse units. And then on the space that's kind of overgrown, a bit unkempt in recent years, that will be cleared. And we have a partnership with Habitat for Humanity, which will build a duplex that's shown in the drawing in slightly paler rose-colored hatching. And the larger footprint unit is actually 1 story and accessible to mobility impaired residents. And the front one, which was the sort of center of the architect's drawing that was featured in the newspaper article, is 2-story. The accessible unit is 2-bedroom and the 2-story is 3-bedroom. The units in the townhouse units, the frontmost one and the backmost one each have 3 bedrooms, and the central one has 4 bedrooms. So those are definitely family housing. So I'll, if there are no questions at this stage about the project itself, I'll switch to what we presented and what was in your packets as a request for a 10% escalation of the funds that you've already committed to this project.
Yes. Any questions about the physical project itself before we get into the financial dimensions of bringing this to life?
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So now we're looking at the document that was in your packet. So how did we come to this stage and discover that we needed a little bit more money? Well, first, the document summarizes for you the project status. Basically, the pre-development phase is complete. All the various permits are in hand. And then there's a long table that comes off the first page of the pro forma, which I can make accessible in detail if anyone wants to look at it. It's a public document. It's been reviewed at various stages. And Greg has a copy of the whole pro forma. So this is clipped from its summary first page of the overall funding. And the highlighted item at the very bottom there shows how sort of what relationship the funding that we're requesting tonight has to the whole. So again, checking off just the stages. pre-development is complete. It actually cost less than we had predicted, so that was a little carryover into the next phase. We're in the midst of the acquisition phase. The attorneys representing AMAHT, the seller, and ACLT are passing documents around, as well as the attorneys who represent the lender in Boston that's going to give us a major loan to cover the construction in the existing building, the reconstruction in the existing building. So acquisition, we hope, happens a week from today. We are scheduled for a closing a week from today. It's worth noting that this property assessed formally at almost $700,000, and we're being offered it for $475,000. So the first private gift to this property is the generosity of the current owners, who discounted way below the market very substantially, provided that we committed the use to affordable housing. So our interests ran together there. And the reason that we find ourselves in need of making additions on the funding side arises in the costs of the redevelopment phase. So that's addressed on the next page. How do we find ourselves so close to property acquisition and needing more funding that we anticipated? Several things have been a little more or a little less than the projection that we made many months ago, but one that changed too much to just sort of measure off against changes in the opposite direction. The contractor, the president of the contracting company that we are working with, has in fact been donating his own time for months now to participate in our planning conversations. And he made an estimate that seemed to him realistic based on years of experience of handling buildings of this age and upgrading them and modernizing them. But in fact, when he finally collected all the sub bids quite recently, that happened during June and early July, presumably motivated by inflation, but also by great uncertainty on the parts of all of his subcontractors. The GMP here stands for guaranteed maximum price. So earlier there were estimates, good faith estimates, that this was a realistic number to plan with. But by the time all the subs were in, and this price is a commitment on his part that that's the total he will collect. If things get abruptly worse, that's his problem, not ours. So when that number finally came in, together with a contingency allowance that we had made, we allowed, at his advice, he kind of saw this problem coming. And he, as a participant in the working group conversations, urged that we allow a much larger contingency as a fraction of the total than would be customary in a project like this. It's really twice as big as would customarily have been used, with the total being 900. But in fact, the escalation here ate the contingency. Our Boston lender wouldn't let us take the contingency to zero, wouldn't allow us to proceed with no contingency. So now the sum of the bid and the contingency is very substantial, about $190,000. And as we went along, among others, we interviewed vendors to conduct the state mandated or state regulated process for fair marketing. We aren't a big enough organization to have a staff person that has that certification. So we were looking in the market for people to do that. That led to two firms having a conversation with us. Both of them were dismayed at how narrow the margin was between the upper limit of the allowed income. These are going to be offered to families whose income does not exceed 80% of AMI, but the prices require them to have 70% AMI. Otherwise, they won't be able to meet the algorithm. You know, people overextend themselves all the time, but there is an algorithm that says if you're going to benefit by public assistance, then your housing should be not more than 30% of your budget. So that sets a limit to what we can have the price be. So we had pegged the prices to 70%, which means that we were asking them to market to a relatively small segment of the people who might otherwise be eligible. And they were strongly recommending that we try to improve on that. So just as a matter of information, we didn't change it in the pro forma, but it turns out that for every 5% you drop the AMI, you repeg your prices so they're eligible to a broader range. That costs you about $59,000 per 5% AMI. So we called this $190,000 gap. If we're going to go back out to people and ask for more money, we might as well address this problem while we're at it. So that means looking at about $250,000 gap. And the game plan for addressing that included a review of our costs. We took the lower of the two bids of the two marketing firms, and relative to the pro forma we were working with, that saved us a little money. And we also looked really carefully with the contractor at savings in the construction. And a modest amount can be saved in the construction by abandoning one of the energy conservation measures that we had in there, which we would very much like to put back. But what we're doing is perfectly to code. This was just a trick of putting in so-called energy recovery vents. So in the bathroom and kitchen vents, instead of just blowing out air that you've spent money and fuel to heat, it goes through a more complicated ducting system that allows you to allows incoming cool air to capture heat from the exiting air. But it costs a little more. And that was sort of the only place we could realistically see a savings, because it had been carefully planned in the first place to not make luxury choices. So then we then launched on private fundraising. That is just an approach to our own usual people that we approach, and some that we hadn't approached before. ACLT itself upped its commitment, which had originally been $100,000 from our reserves. So we went up by 10%. We set a goal of collecting at least 90,000 in new fundraising. And in fact, to our astonishment, in 2 weeks of putting this before our friends and neighbors, we raised almost $150,000. So if you put in the 30,000 that is requested, we'll be at the point where, as we continue fundraising while the project is up and running, we have a few months before we have to publicly announce the prices. And also we have a few months before the contractors will be closing the walls, and we can't reverse the decision about putting in energy recovery vents. Once we've made a contract with a vendor, that won't come back. So that's where we are. And I think there's an additional paragraph in your document where I just summarize what our continuing fundraising goals are, which is to restore the energy efficiency. The other savings place was, instead of restoring the historic floors, there's some incredible wide board floors in that building, that we can lay down pergola. Oh, that's not right.
Pergo.
Thank you, Pergo. High priority is to increase the window of affordability. And we'd like to restore the developer's fee, that, in quotes there, that's in fact the fund that will come back to ACLT that will position us to have a brisk start on our next venture, as we had reserves available to start this one. But the really key element that I hope you'll take pleasure in supporting is our ability to increase the window of affordability. Questions?
Okay, very good. So, this is a big project with a lot of moving parts. It's been a labor of love and vision from Dean of Natural Sciences and Mathematics at UMass, going on to do volunteer work to enhance affordable housing and ownership. And we're grateful to be able to support the project. So the request is, in effect, we can look at it from our standpoint as a kind of 10% increase on our existing commitment. And that number shakes out from all of those moving parts that were just documented. So yes, let's have some questions for Linda. Feel free to ask questions about the project or where the numbers are coming from. Or anything else that comes to mind. Mayan, please.
I saw on one of the slides, it said something like you were talking about some of the main costs being attributed to inflation, but then there was something else that said other fees as well. I was just kind of wondering if you could pull back up the slide if I'm like saying the wording wrong, but I was wondering if you could maybe expand upon if there are other like fees that are coming out that aren't attributed to inflation that maybe would be relevant.
Oh, I think this is conjecture. I had a conversation with Seth Lawrence Slavas, who is the contractor, about this, and this was months ago. And he didn't believe that the tariffs that have been going back and forth had impacted all that much on the specific kinds of things that would be needed for this project. Personally, it seems to me that when you ask a contractor to give a guaranteed minimum price, so separately, the plumber has to come forward with a GMP, all the subcontractors, that's what they're going to get, regardless of the peculiarities of the current cost situation because of of tariffs being used as a political maneuvering point to an extent that they haven't done before. I don't know. Just that the bottom line from the contractor's perspective was that he was unpleasantly surprised that the subcontractor bids came up higher than his experience suggested they would.
And sorry, could I ask a follow-up question? Thank you so much for clarifying. I guess I was just wondering, in the future, do you anticipate, down the line in the project, there being any other like additional unexpected costs beyond today, or would this kind of be it?
I mean, you never know. But I'll tell you explicitly what will happen subsequently. And I already emphasized that the contractors, both the general contractor, which is Wright Builders, and the subcontractors, at this stage submit a guaranteed maximum price. So they would have to argue hard for charging more. We've gone back and forth on the actual conditions quite a bit. If the client, ACLT in this case, comes forward in 2 months and says, "Oh, I'd really like that to be a little different," that's opening a great big door for them that can then come forward with a substantial increase in the cost, whether it's intrinsic to what you asked them to change or not. So we've made a real effort to get to a point where, unless the house, this is another caveat, when you open the walls in a house that's almost 200 years old, sometimes you get bad surprises, and that leads to change orders. On the other side of that equation, the contractor is very experienced with buildings of this age. It's a part of their standard market segment to redo old houses so they're more energy efficient. They still look like they still have the same architectural vocabulary, but inside them, they function like modern houses. So your point is well taken. We've done what you reasonably can at this stage, and we're close to the big cost items. That by far the biggest single cost item is the guaranteed maximum price that Wright Builders will charge us.
Thank you, Mayan and Linda. Paul.
Two questions. So, but shouldn't Linda, shouldn't the GMP take away any uncertainties that in terms of you opening the wall and discovering something? Isn't that included in the GMP?
Yes, unless we change our minds, and when we say
Right, understood. But if you said if
so, no,
sometimes you get surprises.
yeah, that's right. The kinds of surprises that are bad luck for the contractor are the contractor's problem.
Right. So it's only if the trust says, "Oh, we want to put in triple pane windows or quadruple pane with something different."
Yeah, we aren't going to come across with
Yeah.
something like
Okay.
that.
And I think we had wanted to know the what is the balance in the trust reserves at this moment, and then what would they be after if we give the 30,000?
Are you asking Gaston for the AMA?
No, I'm talking about the land trust.
ACLT.
Yeah.
Paul, let me go get that and follow up.
No.
No,
I'm talking about
ACLT's reserves.
ACLTs.
Yeah, because Linda, you mentioned that you were going from 100 to 110 of your own cash.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
so I think Paul's asking, what's your current cash and what will it be after the 110? Yeah.
Good question. Sorry, I didn't bring Rob Connor with me. The 100 that was already committed,
right?
Reduced our totally flexible reserve. If we have enough there for the 10, but not a lot more. When I label it reserve, I truly mean funds that we haven't made some other commitment to. Our bank balance is substantially better than that. But we recently hired our first staff member, and we made a decision as a board. He's now served for a year, so he's just had an evaluation. He's performed very well. And so now this starts the clock on a commitment that we made to ourselves that we were always going to be able to see that we could afford the person for 2 more years. So no staff person has to spend a whole year helping us hustle the money that allows them to still be employed the following year. So if you look at our bank balance, you'll find that it looks like 10,000 isn't going to make much of a dent in it. But if you look at the version that just shows what's truly uncommitted at this point, 10,000, I don't remember the exact number. It leaves something like 10 or 15 left in the reserves.
So if I can follow up, suppose the trust, the town has put $750,000 into this project so far. If the trust says no to the additional 30, does the project die, or would you find the money someplace else?
The project doesn't die.
Okay.
Yeah. If you were following the way those charts that I submitted were set up, they were tidily set up, so it showed a $30,000 gap. But the truth is that the amount we raised more than we thought we would over the last few weeks. We had said that we needed to raise 120, but in fact we raised 150. So we've already started to eat on those goals that we're asking you to help us eat away, which is to reduce the price, to restore a little bit more. It took that extra fundraising took our current, we had basically zeroed out the developer's fee. If we do the pricing at 70% AMI and everything runs the way the current pro forma shows, we'll get back 14,000 of the 110 we put into it.
It feels to me like we're providing $30,000 to the ACLT and not necessarily to the project. I don't know if that's really the role of the trust. I think you have the resources. It's a project that you want to initiate, and coming to the town for additional funds because there's a bit of a gap. It seems like you have fundraising capacity, and we have a lot of projects that are coming down the road and dedicating even more funds to this project. I think it's about 150,000 a unit that we're putting into this. It's not a lot. 30,000 isn't going to break either of us, I don't think. But I just question why you come to the trust first, versus fixing the gap yourself.
we put that request in before we knew that the community was going to react at the level that they did. And even with that success, we're still budgeting that we need the revenue at 70% that comes from pricing the homes at 70% area median income with that small population to find the funders. The marketers are going to be trying to find exactly suitable candidates from a relatively narrow cut. If it were more comfortable in terms of whether the AMAHT is being asked to give money that aligns with its mission, we would be comfortable if you earmarked it to say this has to go to lowering the price points. That would put the burden back on us to raise that much money just to keep the project going.
Oh, yeah, I
Your
understand that.
perception is correct, Paul. I'll just say I've been stunned, to tell you the truth, of the level of the community's generosity to this project. And I don't mean just this project, I mean ACLT as a project. The people that we sent that fundraising letter around to just a few weeks ago collectively had come up with $150,000 to enable a low-income family to buy 61 Fearing Street just 6 months ago. Among other things, the letter unearthed a new donor. We sent it to the mailing list for the Sunset Pleasant monthly brunch, and that unearthed someone who's never paid us any attention before that gave a substantial gift. I think that that what ACLT has done is set up a piece of infrastructure, modest as it is, that enables people who are very concerned that what they were able to do as young people coming into Amherst is not possible for the generation that's coming into Amherst now. Well, it isn't coming into Amherst, that's buying in East Hampton because it's out of the question to look in Amherst. So
yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that, and I think that's why I think, especially the location of this in the neighborhood that it's located in or adjacent to, and it's a very attractive thing for people, especially people who have to do required minimum distributions of their retirement funds. It's a very attractive thing, and I just think that the fundraising capacity is certainly there. And I keep thinking about our next project. You're thinking about your next project. We're thinking about our next project, which might not be as in such an attractive location, and might run into bigger problems. We don't have the luxury of doing guaranteed maximum pricing as a community. Other people do. So I don't know. I hesitate on I love what you're doing. I love the project. I think it's going to be a landmark project because it's going to be very visible to everybody. So I think I really support it. But I think the trust has lots of priorities that we're trying to achieve, and we have contributed a lot to this project as well as already.
Thank you, Paul. TJ.
Maybe something to help me understand a decision here. Wasn't really understanding the time pressure on this. Could you help me understand, like, if a fund?
What we need to know now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because all of our funders, including our lenders, require that before they release any money, we have to be able to point to having every dollar either in hand or credibly committed. So we can't go ahead with the acquisition a week from now if we can't point to credibly to having all the funds in hand or committed. That doesn't stop us from fundraising in order to improve the affordability, but for what we're actually committed to doing. Greg can explain. He's been charged with making sure we do, in fact, have all the funding credibly committed before the town will sign off on the $300,000 we've already committed is essential to our ability to buy the property a week from today.
The 300,000 is this additional 30,000. I'm just trying to understand the
The
decision.
the additional 30, the 30, there's no time pressure to have the 30 in the bank. There is a time pressure to know whether or not it's committed.
To know when it's committed by when?
In order, so that what we present to Greg, among others,
Okay, for that.
on your behalf, that he can honestly look you in the eye and say the whole of the funding package is credibly committed.
Okay. It's like an Ouroboros situation, isn't it? It's like, okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Bob.
Yeah, with the GMP, how until when is that valid now? The price that you've gotten, what's the period?
Good question. I have to look at Seth Lawrence's contract, Seth Lawrence Slavis's contract. The end date is supposed to be October 2026. But that's not the question you're asking. How long are all those prices good?
I'm looking.
Typical practice is they're good for 30 days, but I haven't handled all the intermediate paperwork.
Okay, that just sort of goes to the question of timing and also, you know, the possibility of it increasing further on. And then I think in one of your slides, you had I think it was around 52,000. That's the new contingency level.
That's right.
That would presumably be for things outside of the construction. Is that correct?
That's for any bad thing that, well, on the contractor, Wright Builders themselves, their bottom line number has their own contingency in it. That's our contingency. That's the so-called owner's contingency or project contingency. So any unexpected expense between now and the end, that's the 50,000 that would be tapped. But it's part of the formally submitted budget. So the Boston lender who's giving us the bridge loan for construction insisted that the contingency be not less than that.
Okay, but that's separate from if there's a guaranteed maximum price.
Right, the guaranteed maximum price is what we will pay the contractor at the end.
Right,
and that
but then contingency would be other things.
Any unexpected things that happen as we go along.
Okay. And I'm just wondering, I take Paul's point very well, and also, excuse me, do support the project and want it to succeed. Is there a possibility, this is maybe a question for Greg or Gaston, as to whether we could have something where we'd say, okay, we would be willing to kick in the 30,000 if ACLT is unable to raise that amount by whatever date it is that they're, the important deadline date is. I don't know whether that is doable, feasible, whether it satisfies the credible guarantee of funding or not, but just something I'm sort of running around in my head.
You want to respond to that, Linda, from your end?
I think I understand the suggestion, and I'm grateful for your making it, which is that you could attach a condition that you're willing to put that much more in if it's actually needed to maintain the integrity of the project. Basically add to our contingency fund.
That's the intent, yeah.
The same conditions that'll get spent only if the project's in danger without it.
Okay, Carla.
I don't know that I have anything unique to add at this point, because I think everyone's kind of, I raised my hand originally when I was kind of thinking along the lines of what Paul was saying, and that it sounded like the fundraising had gone better than expected. And I was just questioning as to what, whether it was our role in this position to to cover the difference, because it sounded like the 30,000 at that point, if the trust was, if the ACLT was able to, raise over 100,000 in that short amount of time, it seemed like 30,000 more wasn't insurmountable. So again, I think I'm just gonna, again, echoing what a lot of people said, is that I'm supportive of the project. I voted originally to support it. I just wasn't sure that it was our role in this particular case to cover what I don't even think sounds like $30,000 gap anymore. It sounds like things have even changed since the original ask. So, all right, thanks.
My question, I guess, Linda, is I understood the wrinkle around the 70 versus the 80 and having buyers that don't have to really squeeze themselves. But putting that issue on ice for a second, if you focus on the 80% on 80% AMI and you plan to price accordingly, then what would be the gap, or would there be a gap?
There wouldn't be a gap.
There wouldn't be a gap.
If we went, the pricing now, the pro forma gives projected income at the time of sale of the units.
Yeah.
And that's in the resources column. I think it's 726,000. I don't, without it open in front of me, sometimes I misquote the numbers, but it's in that range certainly. That's based on running the algorithm that the state requires, the generated, where all kinds of things have to get added in. And then you add in whatever is the current mortgage interest rate. And it tells you then what fraction of payment, monthly payment, the family can afford, and as a function of what the price of the house is. So you can't really price the houses at 80. Then you're looking at an impossibly narrow. Then people have to be making exactly 80%, because if they're making more, they're not eligible. If they're making less, they won't get a mortgage. So you want that range to be as broad as possible. Typically, in the presentation you saw earlier about the other project, the units were divided according to the percent AMI they would serve. That doesn't mean that the units will be priced at that range. They've got to be priced lower, or they're going to run into the same thing, that a tiny fraction of the people will make exactly the right amount of money.
Those are rentals though, so.
Well, the same thing applies. It still has to be priced.
Yeah.
So there's a little room to maneuver, because everybody's situation is slightly different.
Yeah, I mean, presumably the attractiveness of the location is gonna, and the desperation of people for housing is going to solve that problem. I guess the question I have is, when we originally gave the 300, you were planning it for 80%, right?
We were, we never priced at 80%. If you actually, I don't remember if the question came up at the time. It will be advertised as available to persons earning not more than 80%. But priced so that it's affordable at 70. That distinction is rarely made in public presentations, but since we're looking at small fractions of budget, it has to be made. It determines what we can realistically plan on the income side. And you have to leave yourself some flexibility too, because that number varies with the interest rate. Who knows what the interest is going to be by the time. And then once it's advertised, once the prices are advertised, then you have to stick to them. So who knows? In order to allow the marketers to actually collect up a group of people, and there are state mandated periods that the advertising has to be out there. Sort of around a November timeframe, we're going to have to advertise the actual prices, and then we're locked into them, regardless of if the interest soars up a 1.5 in the next months. So there's part of the contingency is about the unreliability of our assumptions on the income side. It might benefit us, interest rates go down, our prices can go up. That'll be Fat City, but the opposite can also happen. It can tank us.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah, just weighing in with a regulatory angle. So, as Linda mentioned, 80 is the ceiling, is not to exceed, right? But in fact, EOHLC, which is the state agency that in this case we're not partnering with for funds, but we're partnering with for a permanent affordability covenant, as well as sort of just additional oversight on the marketing and whatnot. So they're going to require, and I guess for credit for the town's affordable housing, subsidized housing inventory as well. So they're going to require a marketing plan that has at least a 10% window. So the price they want to see is 70%. So the statutory, the minimum statutory window here is 70 to 80%. So the price is right now in pro forma are pegged at 70. To get everything down to 65, we calculated would be around $59,000. Now, at the juncture of pricing, it could land at 67, it could land at 68. There's no round numbers here. But once they announce the price, they have to stay with that.
What's the interest rate on the pro forma?
Right now, it's around. On the mortgages, I believe they're around 6.7, 6.75. I think. That's unknowable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, just kind of thinking out loud, I have two very opposite thoughts. On one hand, that between the time the request to us was planned and now you've had great luck fundraising, that's on one side, and on the other side that it's hard, it's easy to imagine that there are going to be new needs along the way to finish this project, and those kind of go and cut in opposite directions. So I hear the comments everyone's made, and so this is a harder to reason through than your first visit to us. And so I'll just pause there as I think out loud. Other comments, reactions, anyone who wants to think out loud like I just did. I heard you, in terms of kind of variations on the request as presented, I've heard two variations. One was suggested by you, Linda, that our commitment could be contingent on listing the units at a 70% pricing. And I also heard the suggestion coming from Bob of basically committing to a contingency fund, so to speak. So those are two variations on the request that I've heard in our conversation so far. I wonder, I was going to see if you had further comments, Paul. Thank you for raising your hand.
Yeah, it's a relatively small number, right? $6,000 a unit. So we're not talking about, so I think I feel like the trust, the town's really stepped up for this project, and the trust, I don't know how much money, you haven't told us how much money you have, like if this would drain your account or if it,
well, we're still
I'm sorry,
ACLT, yes.
Yeah. So I think, I think Greg had asked for that number. So I think if you have, I don't know what your reserves are. Maybe you have a mammoth amount. I don't know. And I think the fundraising capacity with this coming into the end of the calendar year is going to be pretty attractive. And so I'm not going to support this request, but if the trust, obviously I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to make a motion, but someone else could.
I can make a brief comment about the ACLT reserves. I don't remember the number exactly, but it did come up in the last board meeting around a different issue, which is whether we could afford to give our staff member a raise. But one of the things the trust had said for a long time that it wants to do, but not yet earmarked any money for, is set up a reserve that will be earmarked for unexpected large expenses from our homeowners. Part of the ground lease, the homeowner takes responsibility for the maintenance of the land as well as the home. So if a tree falls on the roof and they're underinsured, they're not supposed to be underinsured. The bank takes care of that. But there have been a couple of instances where a neighbor's tree destroyed a fence, and it was a problem for the homeowner. We came up with a short-term loan. We'd like to expand that as we expand the number of homeowners, and it's been there conceptually while we had uncommitted reserve. But when we made the commitment, as big as it was initially, to this project, and it's a week from today, it's going to be actually gone from our bank account, no longer a matter of conjecture, because it's part of the costs of the acquisition, the first 100,000. The actual reserve, I'm going to say, is 10 plus or minus 5,000 of uncommitted resources now, setting aside the commitment to have money in hand before we continue the employment of the staff member. You're right about the fundraising. As I said already, I've been astonished at the response of the community when we ask.
Well, we've given this matter, I think, a lot of consideration, and so we should see if we have a motion one way or another.
Yeah, I'm struggling with this one. On the one hand, it's a fairly minor amount of money that's being asked for. And I think we have the funds in the housing trusts accounts. But on the other hand, it does seem like fundraising is quite likely to be able to close the gap. I guess what I'm struggling with is I would hate to, have inaction on our part on this particular thing, cause the project to fall apart or a huge delay or something like that. And I don't have a strong sense of how much it would be in jeopardy if we don't approve this request. So I'm just struggling to come up with. I was thinking of, well, could it be to the contingency fund, or could it be something that, if you're able to fundraise that amount, if we commit to that fund, then it gets returned to us if we pay it, and you raise enough money. But it's all kind of convoluted. So I'm just thinking out loud and struggling with what to vote on.
So I guess back to Hijay's question about the timing, I guess what it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, Linda, but that to close next week, all you have to do is say that instead of going from 100 to 110, you go from 100 to 140, and you have the funds. It's just that in order to pay your staff person next year, you're going to have to raise money. Do I have that right?
How did you get from 100 to 140?
Well, because I'm saying with the cash in your account, it's right. Committed, but it's committed for a salary next year.
Yeah.
So you could close with the funds that you have. Isn't that right?
Yes. The reason that I was a little bit hesitant there, I should probably let Greg answer this. He's been responsible for being the one that has to tell you that we've met the conditions that you established earlier for having no substantial funder wants to have to put their money in and then later have the project collapse. So all the substantial funders, the town is the largest single substantial supporter here. The second is the local enterprise assistance fund, which is the nonprofit lender in Boston that's putting up the bridge loan.
Yeah.
both of those entities are adamant that the whole funding stack has to be in place before they release their money.
Right. No, but
So-
Linda,
so Greg is going to have to look at our bank account and decide that that commitment is valid, that we're credibly able to proceed, so that he can credibly.
Yes, but
300,000, we need to go ahead with acquisition.
right. But what I'm just trying to clarify is that you can credibly say that you'll go from 110 to 140 because you have the cash, and you can come back to us in February and say, we've run out of money to pay our staff person. Can you help us? Is that right?
No, it would be later than that. We for sure have
Okay.
him for a year. We don't
So
have.
I guess the
we made to him that we wouldn't leave him with only.
Yeah. So the alternative to Bob's request is just to say, we'll be receptive if you have a cash crunch in a year.
Right.
And then that does that solve your analysis, Greg?
So, I mean, this is maybe a side note. We wouldn't be in a position to fund operating costs for ACLT. Our funds would need to be project based. Now, perhaps there'd be a way to fund the
We
project.
have more than 30. We have more than 30 that we could apply to operating costs right now.
I mean, I think generally, I don't know that we've done staff costs. We've done so but that's a question down the line. I think perhaps, if I may just throw out a potential way to think about it. One way for AMHT to relate to ACLT is to anticipate the juncture at sale and evaluate the project. When it's complete, when we'll know more about interest rates, new income pricing that will have taken effect, as well as kind of just what the sales environment looks like overall, and perhaps how critical that spread from 70 down to 65 might be at that time. It's hard to have sightline from here into precisely what that, how much of a crunch that is. We would know at that point, or at least much closer to knowing, right? If we're a few months away rather than 18 months away. So that might be a way to sort of stand by with some funds strategically. I don't know. I don't know if I can say that we can put money into just AMAHT operating.
Sure.
Account.
Yes. I understood. I mean, and when is the? I mean, I'm surprised that you're going to be able to market as soon as November. You haven't even started construction.
27, right?
Oh, November 27.
No, November. We hope to have families in place a year from now.
Right.
I had hoped to have them in place to start school.
Okay.
That's not what we've heard, but okay.
When we delayed the, well, I sometimes say 27 when I mean 26. The construction will start very soon after the closing, a week from today. In fact, part of the securing of the property, Seth has promised to put up his chain link fence virtually instantly, even though he won't actually have crews doing work, but to define the property and identify it as secured, he intends to do promptly. And we hope to be marketing, I can't remember the exact conditions in the marketer's quote, but he will need to know the prices at which it's going to be offered well in advance of actual sale and move-in. I think I'll just leave it at that. I was going to make an observation about possible ways forward. I know what it was. It's not only the town that has held us to the condition that the whole funding stack has to be in place before any funds get released. That's also the condition of our construction lender.
Yes.
That has to, so whatever you decide, if you're generous enough to make a commitment that can be drawn down if it's needed, it has to satisfy Leith that that's a credible commitment by her standards, that it's not something we'd have to apply again for competitively, for example. If I can just put my own opinion in here, I think that the biggest danger that we face at this point faces the economy as a whole. This is certainly the most uncertain economy in the United States in my lifetime. And I suspect I wasn't around for the Great Depression, but I was raised by parents who were. I think it's very difficult to predict what's going to happen between the level of peculiar stuff going on in decision making, the profit taking by interests who shouldn't have their hand in the till, the use of tariffs as a device of punitive diplomacy. It's just very difficult to predict. Sort of without what looks like a major upheaval, we could have a rise in interest rates that knocks our income projection into a cocktail.
Understood. I hear you, Linda, and I would want all the cushion I could have as well. The way the conversation's gone, it seems that the question is just how much cushion you want to have in
Right.
your own accounts.
Yeah.
And it's not about closing, and it's not even about the pro forma. And so in light of that analysis, Paul's comments have force, and I know the trust would like to continue to be a supporter and make things possible, but it sounds like we're not actually critical to make, this $30,000 request is actually not critical to make this project possible.
At the moment, that's
yeah.
correct.
And I know that the membership is going to be receptive when we are. And there are several junctures ahead where that could come to be.
That's right.
And so I wonder if unless someone wants to move to approve the request, I wonder if you want to withdraw the request.
That's an interesting thought. Can I just make sure that I understand the sentiment I'm hearing about the kind of position AMAHT would likely take if, for example, interest rates knock $50 or $60 or $100,000 off our income from sales? Would that be an appropriate time to come back in?
I'd like to hear the membership, but speaking for myself, when at the margin we are what makes the difference in affordability, we are activated, is how I understand our mission. And so that's just speaking for myself. I would encourage my fellow members to respond to Linda's question. Hijay, please.
Yeah, I'll jump in. It's kind of similar to how I approached the voting decision last time we had a conversation, Linda. It's the use of the money and how it basically affects our ability to do our overall mission. Like I think that's the reason why they're shaking us on the decision, not necessarily on the merits of like what you're trying to do or the project or anything like that. To me, it's just an order of operations and timing. Which is why I asked again, are we actually time pressured to make this $30,000 decision now? And people really, caught up to that. That's really all it is. Interest rates, I agree with you. All the news that we hear the same news. We all are aware this whole situation is not only uncertain, it kind of frankly sucks for all things that we do. So we're with you there. We're just having a hard time making a decision. And unfortunately, in my professional life, anytime something like this happens, it just gets punted. And I have a feeling that this is kind of where a lot of us feel most comfortable. Because of a potential inability to serve the overall mission. Now, push comes to shove, if you need me to make a decision today, yeah, I mean, I have enough evidence probably to make a decision and not regret the risks that we're going to be taking one way or another. But I don't know if this is a decision I'd like to make today, if that makes sense.
Anyone else want to share your thoughts about Linda's question, which is, you're talking about interest rates. I'm thinking about Canadian lumber. I guess you have such a contract that Canadian lumber is not going to affect things, but that's.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about Canadian lumber. I'm not keeping up. It was weeks ago that Seth said he didn't think any critical materials would be affected by the tariff wars before we had the current exchange with Canada.
Yeah, you can't use hockey sticks to demark the area either. So, to your question, coming back at a later, I think there are any number of legitimate shifts and surprises that could happen where, we could certainly entertain. Whether we could approve or not, it's not something we can say, but certainly could entertain a request to keep the project alive. I think we support the project. We want it to go ahead. If you were coming to us now and saying, if we don't approve this, we're not going to be able to close next week, I think we would take a different course of action, but it seems like that's not the case. So, I would say we are and will still be receptive to trying to make this succeed. But I'm with EJ, not a decision I'd like to make right now, unless we have to.
Yeah. Well, I'm going a little bit out on a limb here. I wouldn't usually make such a decision without checking with my board, but we do need to make decisions and move ahead. So I am prepared to withdraw the request with the understanding that I would be welcome to come back if circumstances change in such a way that completing the project with some reasonable semblance of our original design actually seemed at risk, and particularly if it became difficult to generate a robust pool of applicants because the window was so narrow. That would be another motivation that might bring me back to say we need enough money to reprice at a more affordable level.
And I envision you coming back to us many times, and because you're getting all kinds of great projects.
Yeah.
And I think that the trust is it's best for our relationship if you really need us when you come to us, and we can help you do lots of projects. And so I think that would be a great way to see what's happening.
Right. So with that mutual understanding, I will withdraw the request.
Okay. Well, thank you for rolling with the punches in the conversation, Linda. We really want to see this project go up, and we will get you on the agenda within, a week or two whenever you need to bring something to us.
Actually, I'd like to take you up on the promise of an invitation to come back. I had a conversation with Greg about this, and he urged me not to muddy the waters by telling you about any of our other projects tonight. But I would like to come back with the aim of just helping you understand the full scope of the things we're presently working on. 174 Amity is the most visible, but over the time period that we put 5 families in 174 Amity, sort of from the beginning of when it was brought to us as an offer from the owners to give us a way below market price if we use it for affordable housing. That would be in fall of 2024. Over that interval, we will have met more than half of the goal in your strategic plan of the number of home ownerships to add over 5 years. I, being a betting person myself, I would bet we can single-handedly meet that goal. That we will have 20 families in place over your 5-year plan to put 20 families in ownership. They won't all be new construction, but they'll be homes that would otherwise have been unaffordable.
We would love to help you succeed and be able to say we helped you succeed.
So I'd like to just put some flesh on those bones. So I will ask for a place in your agenda when perhaps you don't have a whole evening full of pressing matters.
Wonderful. We look forward to it.
Debate on the whole spectrum of projects currently in motion.
Well, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing what else you guys have in store, because you are our secret weapon for meeting our strategic goal to having home ownership that is affordable.
Good. Keep thinking those thoughts.
Okay. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
All right. Well, I have been praised for keeping our meetings to 9 o'clock. The one additional item that we wanted to discuss tonight is the initiative that Greg, Bob, and I have been pursuing with respect to the promotion of ADUs. And I guess the simplest way to get to that issue would be to ask if any of you were able to review the draft editorial that we put into the package, and if you have any comments, because the purpose of the editorial is to try to reach out to the community, say we want to help you, and so I think it kind of encapsulates what we're aiming for. And so if anyone has any comments immediately, would love to hear them. I'm also would be we can also do this asynchronously. If folks would like to take a look at that and send us comments by email, we could recirculate a revised draft that incorporates people's feedback before we would send it to the Gazette or anywhere else.
Speak up. I'm pretty sure.
Yes, please, CJ. So by all means.
If we can enable offline comment, I promise to get to it. I'm not ready for a discussion.
Yeah. Okay. I think this is something that lends itself to an asynchronous process. But if anyone has any comments immediately, we do have a little time for that. So are folks willing to kind of take a little ball, please? Thank you.
Yeah, no comments. I honestly haven't read it, but I will. But I encourage people, if they do have comments, to send them directly to Greg, and then not to everybody, because that's outside deliberations type things.
Yes, good. So, Greg, why don't we kind of resend just the draft editorial and the draft survey? And if it's Monday, can we get maybe by end of Thursday? Would that be reasonable? I mean, if you can look at it, that would be great. And so we can maybe try to move on something by the end of the week. The other thing I will say is that our idea is to also line up a few ADUs that are being built and invite community members to do little site visits. Greg has a prospect. Greg, I didn't tell you, I have someone else who Adrian Fabos is kind of just put one up very affordably, less than 300,000 built, and modular home that he put in sight, 3-bedroom ranch, and he would be open to. I own his parents' house where he grew up, and he happens to be Dylan Maxfield's landlord, so I saw him the other day, so we've got maybe two site visits lined up. So the idea is really to kind of show the community what it is to build an ADU, and organize the resources that already exist, and show our willingness to try to help people get it together, and maybe also give grants to make rentals affordable. That's the kind of agenda. So if there are, can I get a kind of a nod to the idea of looking at things over the next few days? Okay, then we'll proceed accordingly. And are there any items not anticipated on the agenda that anyone would like to raise? Have you seen something in the news or anything else that you'd like to point out? All right. Well, we did some good work this evening. Appreciate the feedback that you may have, because I think this is an example of us trying to create opportunities instead of just being receptive to them. Please, Greg.
Just crossing T's here. If we could just sort of see if anybody remaining in the audience wants to make public comment.
Thank you. Maura or Kathleen, do you want to share anything? All right. Well, having crossed the
sorry, I've got Maura here. Can I just go ahead?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Give Maura a minute. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, I had my hand up when you were talking about the ACLT project. And I just wanted to say, I am on the board for ACLT. And when that $30,000 was asked for was when we were going over the project and realized we didn't have the money like 3 weeks ago. And the fact that the fundraising was so successful, it was still, you guys hadn't had a meeting, so it was still on the agenda. But I'm saying that the fundraising letter we sent out was really a panic letter. And I don't think, people just like dug into their pockets. I know I did. I really extended what I would usually give. And I don't know that you can count on that coming in the coming year. But as long as you guys are open to hearing in case unexpected things crop up, hearing from us again, that's fine. Because we don't.
Absolutely.
We thought we did, but we don't.
Absolutely. We don't want to we don't want to create a boy who cried wolf situation. We want to be there when you really need us.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, having dotted the I's and crossed the T's, I think this concludes our first meeting with our new membership. Wonderful to have you, Eason and Mayan, and excited to get you involved. And Jay and Carla, if you see projects you want to get involved in, please let Greg or me know, and we'll look forward to a very productive 26-27 year. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Thanks.